to share my testimony. It's a pretty radical testimony compared to most Christians. A life after death experience, and I'm going to share that in a few minutes. Also, we've invited a lie detector, polygraph, I don't know what you call him, an artist or whatever he is. He'll be sharing some later. And we're going to put the words to the test. The problem is that in our day and age, with so many voices crying out, how do you know if it's true? And is God real? People want to know, and they're grasping at straws to find some proof of God's existence. But God has chosen a way called faith. If everything was perfectly clear, there would be no need for faith. The Bible is a testimony of God's work in history. And that testimony, he doesn't try to prove. He simply says, it is what it is. Either believe it or reject it.
Regarding your Christian testimony, do you intend to answer truthfully each question about that?
Yes. When I was 16 years old, my lifestyle led me into an altercation with the police. And in that altercation, due to my own fault, I was beaten by the police with steel flashlights. And something happened in that period, in that moment. I felt my heart stop beating, and I was very aware of it. And I came inside the body. I don't know how to quite describe it, but it's as though this flesh or this body was a shell. It wasn't real to me. It was like something I had been living in, like a vessel. And as I came inward, all of a sudden I was able to look up and see clouds, and they became brilliantly white. They rolled back like this, like a scroll, and Jesus appeared in the clouds. Now, he didn't say a word to me. I didn't have a conversation with him. We didn't talk old times. I was unbelievably aware that I was coming to a God that I had rejected in my heart as being the thoughts or the feelings of perhaps something that old people and children can believe in, but certainly not me, not a man. I was 16, of course, thinking that I was a man. And the Lord did not say a word, but I began to realize that I was coming to him in a state that I didn't want to come to God in. So I asked him, please, not yet. And when I said that, I felt myself come back into the body, and my heart started beating again.
Are you deliberately lying when you say you had this experience with Jesus at age 16 when you were beaten unconscious?
No. As it turned out, my mother gave me a book, and she had called me to her house. She said, I'm scared. And I said, what are you scared about, Mom? She said, I think Satan's after you. I said, hell, Mother, I don't know what you're talking about. And she had a vision. Now, look, she wasn't a real church-going person, so I kind of paid attention to that. And she had a vision of me running down into a dark pit, and my brother was following me. And it was, when she said my brother was following me, I realized that, my sin is not my own. It affects others around me. And my younger brother wanted to be like me, and he was following my footsteps. And that hit me. And she gave me a book called Deliverance from Evil by Don Basham. And I began to read it, and it scared me because it talked about how the spirit realm is real, how God is real, the devil is real, and it kind of scared me. So I was not sure what to make of it, and I began to say, I need something, or I'm going to be dead by the time I'm 30. I was only 22 years old, as I said, and so I flew to California to meet up with an old girlfriend that I had lived with. And she used to try to get me to go to church, and I figured maybe she knows something about all this God stuff. And went there and tried to redevelop a relationship or see if maybe she had some answers for me. Well, she took me to a psychologist, and he began to tell me that spirits were oppressing me, and it scared me because he was actually more or less reading my thoughts. I remember we were sitting there, and he said, right now, you feel like you have to have a cigarette. And at that very moment, I was thinking, I gotta have a cigarette. I gotta have a cigarette. And when he said it, it scared me. I was thinking, uh-oh, I'm in some weird thing that I don't understand, and it's scary. Well, I determined on the flight back from California, my life had to change. And I got on the plane, and I promised God, I said, God, I don't understand all this, but I'm never going to drink again. And I was determined and meant it with all my heart. Well, I got on the plane and the flight attendants came through, and I said, just give me a coffee, please. And they brought me a coffee. And I remembered that I had a bottle of Kahlua in my bag. When I was in California, I went down to Tijuana, Mexico, and you could buy the Kahlua super cheap there. And being an alcoholic, I enjoyed that sort of thing. And so I remembered that Kahlua was under the seat, and so I reached down and grabbed it, and I just poured it in the coffee. And I drank down the Kahlua and coffee, and suddenly remembered, I just promised God I would never, ever do this again. And I said, Lord, what is wrong with me? And when I said that, I just was saying it under my breath. I heard a response. And this is what the response was. Bruce, you have a demon. And I suddenly recognized that it was the voice of the Lord. And I said, Jesus, what do I do? And he said, command it to come out in my name. And I don't recall the people around me or anything, but I just said, what is your name in the name of Jesus? When I said that, the word addiction blasted in my head, and it was like block letters in front of me. And I don't know why I said that, but I did. And I said, addiction, be gone from me in the name of Jesus. When I said that, it was like an energy ball inside of my stomach and began to move around, and it moved around. It was freaking me out. I'm not used to this stuff. I'm just a regular guy, love a beer, that sort of stuff. And I'm feeling this presence move around in my chest and up into my throat. And finally, I felt a presence leave out of my face. And I was amazed at what I had just experienced. Well, I flew to Atlanta, did the changeover flight from there to Miami. Flew down to Miami, went to my little VW in the long-term parking, jumped in it, rode across from Miami, across the Tamiami Trail, into Naples, Florida, where I lived, and pulled into a 7-Eleven. And in that 7-Eleven, I went in, got a Coke, and came out and sat in the car, and that's when it all hit me. I looked down and noticed for the first time in years there was a Coke in my hand and not a beer. And I marveled at that. I said, this is a Coke. What's happened? And it suddenly hit me. I didn't even know where the beer cooler, I didn't even look in the beer cooler. And as I looked at that Coke, I just hung my head and noticed the pack of cigarettes in my top pocket. And I just realized that I hadn't smoked a cigarette at the layover flight in Atlanta, all the way to Miami, and all the way across driving the Tamiami Trail into Naples. It's as though I had never smoked a cigarette in my entire life. And I marveled and I said, what manner of God is this that could do this?
Are you deliberately lying when you say you had this experience on the plane at age 22?
No. Well, it was powerful beyond anything I'd ever experienced. And I immediately wanted to know this great God of love and power.
Did you deliberately lie to me today in the statements you made regarding these two experiences?
No.
I'm here with Neil Rucker, and I'm going to be asking him a few questions today regarding the polygraph test that he just administered to Bruce Campbell. So, Mr. Rucker, how are you today?
I'm fine.
Good, all right. So first question is, have you met Bruce Campbell before today?
No, today's the first time I ever saw him.
Okay. Do you believe Bruce Campbell's account of his near-death experience and seeing Jesus?
Yes, I do. Because of my experience with polygraph in the past, I feel very strongly that this actually happened to him.